When my husband Ryan and I were first married, we had to work out a major problem in our relationship. Odds are if you have been in a relationship for maybe more than like 5 minutes, you've also had to work out problems in your relationship. I would come home from work when we were first married and I'd say something like this. I'd say, "Oh, I'm working hard to try and figure out how to solve this problem and it's really driving me crazy." And I was just talking out this problem. And then Ryan, being the guy that he is, he would just start to solve the problem, which would then drive me even more crazy. Because you see, Ryan tends to hear the problem that I'm talking about and he just automatically wants to solve it. He wants to tell me the steps that I need to take. But that is not exactly at all what I want at all. I just really want to talk about the problem. I just want to talk it out. And all I really wanted to hear him say is, "Oh, that seems really hard. I'm sure you'll figure it out." You see, what I wanted in the beginning of our marriage, and still today, I just wanted empathy. I just wanted to be heard and not problem solved. Does anyone else get this in their relationships, their friendships, maybe their marriage? You see, these past couple of weeks in Sunday worship, we've been talking about politics and what it means to have unity alongside all the division that's going on in our country right now. And the Bible actually has a lot to say. It has a lot of wisdom for us on unity and division and how we can work together. And so we're talking about that this week. We're talking about what it means to be one body, one spirit, and one mind, worshiping one God. And so this week we're exploring the question about oneness and what it means when God asks us to be this unified, this one. But before we get to this, would you do me something? If you're somebody who's watching on Facebook, would you go ahead and like this post and then share this onto your personal page? If you're joining us on YouTube, would you go ahead and hit the bell? And if you're joining us on cable access, we're really honored you're here. Will you invite someone to join you in watching this through the whole week? So empathy. Empathy is this ability to feel what another person is feeling. And it's very, very different than sympathy. Author Brené Brown, she talks about sympathy this way. She says sympathy is a feeling towards another person. Sympathy often looks like problem solving for the other person, or sometimes it's like adding a little silver lining of the emotion that they're feeling so that you don't have to actually feel it so deeply. An example that you would know if you're using sympathy is if you use the word "at least," right? So say somebody comes up to you and they say something very deep and very personal. They say something like, "Oh, my son is really struggling with school." And then a sympathetic response would be, "Well, at least your daughter is a good student." Or, "I think I'm having a miscarriage." "Well, at least you know that you can get pregnant." Or someone says to you, I'm really grieving my mom. And someone says, "Well, at least you had a mom." We are often uncomfortable with the connection with other people, and so we tend to push it away with this thing called sympathy. We just think we're responding with the person with care, or we're helping to solve their problem by putting this little silver lining around it. But often what we're doing is we're just glossing over it so we don't have to feel the uncomfortableness or the vulnerability or the unfinishedness of what is going on in their life. Empathy, though, is really quite the opposite. To act with empathy, it involves 4 things. The first one is perspective taking. It is putting yourself in the other person's shoes. It's taking the time and the energy and the emotional space to think about what it would feel like for you if you were in that situation. The second is staying out of judgment and listening when the other person is talking to you. And let's be honest, this is really hard because we live in a culture that does a lot of judgment. And let's be honest, we kind of like judgment sometimes too. The third is recognizing an emotion in the other person that you have maybe felt before. Like if you see that they're feeling sad, it's tapping into that own sadness that you have experienced. And the fourth is communicating that you can recognize that emotion. Empathy is saying something like, "Oh, that sounds really hard. And I really don't know what to say, but I'm glad that you told me. And I want you to know that I am here for you." You see, empathy, it fuels connection, whereas sympathy, it drives disconnection. In the Bible, in this book of 1 Samuel, there's this friendship between two guys, Jonathan and David, and they have a little bit of a complicated relationship, if we're honest. Jonathan is King Saul's eldest son, and he has this deep friendship with this shepherd boy named David, who eventually ends up being king. But despite all this drama, Jonathan and David, they are friends. In modern terms, we might call it a bromance between Jonathan and David. You see, they get each other. The Bible says this. It says, after David finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David. He loved him as he loved himself. Their friendship, it attained the level of one in spirit. They had this relational intimacy that most of us just hope for in our friends and in our relationships. Jonathan and David, they sought the betterment for each other, and they were loyal and kind to each other, and they felt deep empathy towards each other. Their oneness meant that when one of them was hurt, the other one felt hurt too. That when one of them rejoiced, the other one rejoiced as well. They didn't minimize each other's human experiences with at least or with sympathy, but instead they felt all of what the other person felt, working towards their friend's best interest and their friend's best selves, as opposed to their own. 1 Corinthians 12 says, "For we are all baptized by one Spirit as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we are all given the one Spirit." So how are we to be in one spirit with other Christians when we seem to be experiencing all these different things? Well, the answer is empathy. It's taking the time to sit with somebody through the vulnerable, uncomfortable parts of life, going ahead and loving them enough to feel what they feel, looking to their interests rather than to your own, and to be present for them. It's doing life alongside them and with them. And here's the beautiful part of empathy. We get to choose this. We get to choose to be empathic, to live in the uncomfortable and vulnerable, and to not have all the answers, to sit with others in their struggles and not try to fix them, but just to love them and be with them, to be one in the spirit with them and they with us. I mean, can you imagine that? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, and you are good, good. Oh, and you are good, good. Oh, and you are good, good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good.
Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you are good, good. Oh, you're never gonna let me down. 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 You're never gonna let me
is holding on. When the night is holding on to me, God is holding